In your opinion, what's the best fight you've ever worked?
Great 12 round. The 12th round was with the kid from Gilbert Sanchez, Ramirez Sanchez, fought on in December. He fought Jesse Hart. That was a great 12th round. Okay. Another fantastic fight where you see fighters give everything they have was a fight in Cancun. Was against a Japanese fighter named Murata against a local kid named Lopez, and they left everything in the ring. And I had sweated through all my clothes, and I wasn't being hit or putting out much effort. That's how hot it was there. I've done a couple fights in Europe that have been just fantastic fights where you just try not to get in the way. And Barrera, Pacquiao Marquez wasn't as great a fight as it was led up to be, but it was still a great event. And Zaragoza, I worked several Morales fights. What a fantastic fighter he was. So it's hard to pinpoint one.
Who's the best fighter you've ever reffed? Like, wow, that guy there, yeah, he's better than all the others I've reffed.
Technically, was Ricardo Lopez. He fought at 105 pounds. They called him Finito.
Finito, yeah.
Yeah, he fought at 105 pounds, 108, and he was just a technician. And he moved so well, and he wasn't a brutal fighter. He had real good hand speed, pretty good power for his size, but he was just such a good technician.
He was also trained by Nacho.
Yeah,
you mentioned earlier.
yeah,
Okay.
and Marquez is a little bit different because he guts out a lot of fights. He puts a lot of pressure, so he gets hit a lot. You like seeing guys that don't get hit, that are real slick.
Right,
So,
right.
I worked Mayweather early on in his career, right when he turned pro. So you couldn't go, that's the guy. But, guys like that you go, fantastic fighter. Pacquiao, Barrera, Morales, it was all great to see them because of how they change their hand speed. A lot of guys don't realize how guys change their hand speeds.
Right.
Everything's not a fastball.
Right.
They throw up some change-ups, some curves in there, and you watch their balance and how they move in the ring is always real entertaining. But if you went hands down, best fighter in the world was Finito. He's the man.
Who's the hardest puncher you've ever reffed?
Vernon Forrest was a pretty good banger. That's Tito Lopez kid just recently.
Okay.
He can rip. Strong kid. I have to think about that a little bit. I mean, the hardest. I took one punch from a kid named Cristino Barrera that at a bantamweight. He hit me in the chest one time, and so far he's probably the hardest one that's ever hit me.
So when a fighter is getting up from a knockdown, what exactly are you looking for?
First, I'm looking at his eyes. So if you ever watch me, when a fighter is down, I'm dropping to a knee to count to him. That gives me an opportunity to look him eye to eye and to evaluate him at that point in time. I don't think it's hard for me to have a fighter on all fours looking up at me while I'm counting to him. So I'd rather get down here, look him eye to eye, start counting to him. You can see his focus in his eyes, and then you watch how he's mentally processing when to get up. And then when he gets up, you want to look at his balance. So I never get close to the fighter as he's getting up, because if he stumbles, then it's easy for me to call the fight. Everybody knows why I called it, because he didn't have his balance. Usually we ask a command. Walk to me, walk over here, and that way you can see how they react to a command, and then also react to their balance. If they've lost those two functions, then you stop the fight.
Okay, so I noticed during a fighter gets dropped, like the ref will look out of the ring to someone. Who exactly is that person that helps the ref pick up on?
We're picking up at the time. We're looking at the timekeeper.
The timekeeper, okay.
Correct.
Okay.
So you're usually, because you want to sort, try to take your time on sorting things out in the ring. You want to make sure you're getting in a good position to examine the down fighter. But you also want to make sure you're in a good position to see the fighter that needs to be in his neutral corner. So if he comes out, you stop the fight and you get him back, stop the count and get him back in the ring. So you need to position yourself in a triangle after you pick up the count, so you can make sure you can see all that and to be able to evaluate the injured fighter.
Okay. Don't know how many areas you've worked that use the standing 8 count versus the knockdown, but what are your thoughts going into issuing a standing 8?
Well, standing 8 is great in the amateurs because of the lack of experience an amateur has. It's not any jurisdiction I've worked, we don't have the standing 8 count.
Okay.
Now, we did some research back in the 80s and 90s with a former commissioner with Nevada, San Macias, and we basically found out if you, at the time you would have issued a standing 8 count, that fighter ends up getting stopped later on anyway. So I don't know if it would prevent it, the damage from overall happening. And then also, I have an issue of the perception of how things going. If in a fight, the knockdown is your home run, is your great things.
Drop the bases, right?
But some states regulated knockdown being worth 1 point. Some states, when they judge it, it's worth 2 points. Now, if you give a standing 8 count, it gives a perception that he's losing. And he could actually be winning the round. He might be up 2 points winning the round. He might be a 10-8 round. And if you do a standing 8 count, then all of a sudden now it's a switch. It's a turn. It could be a 3-point turn in some states. So those are factors that weigh into if they would actually allow an 8 count, standing 8 count.
How would you have, let's get to some controversial moments in fights that you did work. How would you have scored? So Pacquiao Marquez won the very first round. Pacquiao dropped Marquez 3 times. And I believe the fight ended up being a draw because two other judges scored that first round 10-6. 10-8 for the first knockdown, then 10-7, then 10-6. And one judge made it 10-7.
So you go back to the jurisdiction. In Nevada, it's kind of like driving. You need to know where you are on what side of the road you drive on.
Right.
So different jurisdiction. I know the Association of Boxing Commissioners is trying to regulate rules, but still different commissions kind of have a different mentality on how you're supposed to judge that. So with Nevada, it was you win the round, you get 1 point, you get 1 point for each knockdown, 10-6. Now, if you had an out-of-state judge, which I don't, I'm judge. You had an out-of-state judge. Well, he might just feel that that's worth this point, and you're never. And in certain states, they go, you never give a 10-6 round because if you give a 10-6 round, then that's an incompetent referee. He should have stopped the fight. So there's a lot of different variables that might come up with, and that's why I enjoy having a pre-fight meeting, so everybody knows what page we're on. So
here's the hand we're dealt. Here's the rules we're playing by.
Correct.
Right.
And that's why I like personally working with commissions that know the different rules in different states and that know different sanctioning body has different rules about certain things. So so everybody knows what's going on, and I wish more people would know what we're on the inside, what we're looking for. So when they, like in the NFL, if you have a interference rule, you discuss it. You discuss what the interference rule is so you have an understanding what it is. So when it happens again, you go, okay, that was interference, that wasn't. This is the reason it wasn't, this is the reason it was. In boxing, they just go, well, I hate to jump to conclusions, but that referee's incompetent or that judge is incompetent. The incompetence had nothing to do with it.
Well, they're on the take.
It's a criteria that was given to them for their decision making.
Right. There was a degree of controversy over the 12th round knockdown in Wilder Fury. Some thought the ref maybe should have waved it off. Others thought he counted a bit too slowly. Is there a set, defined, finite time frame that you're counting over a down fight? Is it 1,000, 2 1,000?
No, there's no. It's that's why they say it's a 10 count. Okay. So it even goes back to the Tyson Douglas fight. They say that was that was a slow count to let Tyson up. And the controversy in that fight, Octavio Moran was a great referee because he also did Duran Leonard in the Sugar Dome. He was a great referee. He quit boxing after that fight. He got tired of the BS. He quit. A great referee, fantastic referee. So, and Jack Reef's a great referee. He's done probably 100 world title fights. So he had an opportunity to examine Tyson. Also, it's a world title fight. Now, if it was a 4-round fight, yeah, you wave it off. You watch a fighter go down like that, you wave it off. Second thing, you're worried about a secondary concussion. So the way he landed and then hit his head on the mat, you're worried about the damage that the second hit on the mat caused. And then thirdly, he was smart enough to take the evaluation. Guess what happened? Lazarus rose from the dead and finished that fight and came out to be a draw. So the fans got what they wanted to see. They got to see the whole fight.
So you revealed to me that you've done minimum 1,000 to as many as 1,500 fights in your time. And speaking of controversies, people seem to dwell on like 4 or 5 maybe off nights that you had. I'll just list the issues and we can get into them, and then we'll go into.
You only got 4 or 5? I did a seminar with myself, and I used myself as an example a couple years ago. And after looking at some of the fights I've worked, I can't believe I still get work. But the reason I think I'm good at what I do now, because I've already made all the mistakes.
Well, and you don't run from them. So let me just run through them real quick. We mentioned it earlier. You telling Marquez he was ahead on the cards. For some reason,
Can I give you a little background on that?
Yeah.
In Mexico, a cut fighter loses a fight. It doesn't go to the scorecards. So if you watch Marquez's reaction,
he seemed pretty bummed.
No, he thinks he's going to lose that fight.
Right.
And guess where he's going to fight next if he wins this fight? He's going to fight Pacquiao.
Okay.
So complete fear came over his face.
He did have very defeatist, now that you mention that, he did have very defeatist body language.
Now, I'm not Rain Man, but that was in the 9th round. So that's 27 scorecards that I got to keep track of. Now, I'm not that smart to keep track of 27 scorecards. The commissioner has a spreadsheet that he's working with, and probably in Texas, they have a computer that they run it through an Excel spreadsheet. How do I know that he's up ahead on the scorecards?
So you were merely giving him your opinion.
I was saying if you're ahead on the scorecards, you're winning the fight. Now,
Okay.
I've been around it a lot. I knew he had the edge on the fight. He was winning the fight.
Right.
But I wanted him to have the confidence that he wasn't going to lose the fight because of that accidental headbutt.
And I'm sure Marquez would thank you for that. If he
Right.
didn't already, he would now, I'm
and,
sure.
And so, and try to wrap this up in a synopsis, I got called out by HBO. Now, it is okay for other referees to pat fighters on the butt, tell them what a good job they do, and, to be like that. But I'm trying to defend the rules and letting him know the situation so he understands the rules, which in every other sport it's okay to do. And in a lot of other jurisdictions, it's okay for the referee to do. So do you know who actually wrote up the report for suspension for me?
Who?
Dickie Cole.
Your own father?
Well, he had to. That was his job.
Okay. Or it
So-
would have seemed like favoritism. I get it.
And so he wrote up the report, and you're not going to believe this. The first report. So it's the head of the Department of License Correction came down on me. They fined me $15,000, and they were going to suspend me for a year. Well, I don't make $15,000 working boxing. And basically what I told him, I go, if you're going to fine me that much, you won't be able to find a referee to work.
Right.
So put it in context of what I made that night, not on comparing me to a plumber that makes $150,000 gross a year for his plumbing company.
Right. 10% of his wages.
Right. So if you would have fined me 10% of what I made that night, I probably got to find $100. But if you're going to start carrying that level of fine for the position that we do and what we make, the referees can't afford it because we're going to make a mistake. We are going to make a mistake. It's the nature of the beast.